County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with a friend. Folk of Norfolk, you won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road, bound to be back for more of North. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road, bound to be back for more of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, Norfolk, no stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with a friend folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the council meeting for February the 18th, 2020. I would like to remind everyone that our meetings are web streamed and televised, and for those in attendance, I would ask if you could please turn your phone on silent mode. Thank you to our camera volunteer, Ryan Wallace, for being here with us today. Before we begin, I just wanted to make a couple of remarks. As everybody's read, there's been some terrible news over the weekend in Peacock Point, and I know Council just wanted to make sure that our neighbours in Haldeman know that we stand with them as they begin to process an absolutely heartbreaking tragedy. I know that it's been difficult for all of us to watch first responders search unsuccessfully for 9-year-old Alexander Otley. As residents of small towns and villages ourselves, we certainly know how a tragedy like this will touch every one of the people in the community of Peacock Point, and we just want to let them and Alexander's family know that all of us here in Norfolk are thinking of them during this terrible time. And we also would encourage residents to support the family through the GoFundMe page that has been set up in their name. Also, in Port Dover, as many of you have probably read, I wanted to take the opportunity to publicly send support on behalf of all of Council to some Port Dover residents that are also having a tough time right now. You're likely aware that there have been 3 people who have been quarantined on board a cruise ship off the coast of Japan for some time, are from Port Dover. We've now learned that one of those people have actually tested positive for the coronavirus and is currently being transferred to a hospital in Japan. And I know that Council wants to let each of these individuals know that the 64,000 residents of Norfolk County are thinking about them, and that we are certainly looking forward to seeing them all return to Canada safe and healthy. I also wanted to make another announcement for those of you who are here today and those that are watching in regards to a town hall. Norfolk County is going to host a community forum in Langton on Thursday, this coming Thursday, February 20th at 6:30 p.m. at the Langton Community Centre. And that forum will be to help residents learn more about the decisions that Council made as part of the 2020 budget process. As you know, there's a great deal of discussion going on about these decisions happening in the West End, so we wanted to get a meeting set up as quickly as possible, but we are going to be planning similar events in communities across the county, and we will announce those details shortly. So moving on into our agenda on some more positive news, we do have a ceremonial activity today, and so I'd like to call up Ashley Butler and Bill Mays respecting the Bradley Memorial Bursary. So the Drainage Superintendents Association of Ontario, Chapter 5, Niagara Region, annually awards the Ralph Bradley Memorial Bursary to a student entering a college or university in the field of agriculture or water management. And this year's award recipient is Ashley Butler, that's here with us today. Ashley and her family are local residents of the Wyndham Centre area, and she was a student of Simcoe Composite School. In her final year, she impressively attained a class average of 94% and is currently attending Fanshawe College in London in the Honours of Bachelor Applied Technology or the Biotechnology program. So on behalf of Norfolk County Council and staff, a big congratulations, Ashley, and we wish you the best in your future endeavours.
So I'm Bill Mays, the one of the 2 superintendents in Norfolk County, and on behalf of the Drainage Superintendents Association, Chapter 5 Niagara, which is from here to Fort Erie, from the lake up to Hamilton, we present a plaque in honor of the past Ralph Bradley, who initiated the award back in 1994, and a check in the amount of $600 for Ashley to use towards her furthering her education. So, congratulations, Ashley.
Okay, moving on now. Approval of the agenda. The deputy clerk has noted that agenda item 10B should read a bylaw to amend the assessment schedules based on actual costs incurred for constructing various drains. Other than that, are there any other changes to the agenda? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I would like to put a motion on the floor to waive the rules of order and allow deputation to come forward and speak today that's not on the agenda.
And it's in regards to?
I'm assuming arenas, community budget initiatives.
Okay, is there a seconder for Councillor Martin's motion? Councillor Taylor? All those in favor? And that's carried. And moving on, any other changes? Councillor Rabbits?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, just a procedural question regarding approval of the minutes and reports of committees. There's a couple items that I would like pulled for further discussion. Should I broach that subject when we're at that point in the meeting, or should I pull those items now?
You could pull them now if you want.
I would like to pull 7A and 7B for some discussion. I'd also like to pull 8A and 8D for further discussion.
So the budget minutes have already been, we're just looking for corrections for errors or omissions to them. The budget has already been ratified and approved.
Correct. For discussion, not deliberation on the items themselves, I feel that would be an opportune time to speak about some of the decisions that were made, provide some clarity to the public. That's the intention of me pulling it, just for discussion. Or we could save it for announcements, general announcements at the end. It's up to you.
I think at the end, yeah, and general announcements for something like that. So 7A and D, and what was the other one as well, Councillor Rabbits? Just see it is...
In terms of the minutes, we're looking at...
No, the reports of committees, you can...
A and B, and I'll save that for
Okay, we're
other
gonna go through
announcements.
those
Reports of
individually.
committees, it was A and D. But
So the
again, that's
reports
getting
of
into budget
committees,
committee.
you'll be able to pull out at the time as we go through. Councillor Shelley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for clarity, Councillor Rabbits is pulling 8A and 8D.
Well, we will be going through the reports of committees
Yes,
there
and that'll
individually.
be an opportunity to ask questions and then...
Correct.
Correct, thank you.
Councillor Van Passen?
Just on a matter of procedure, I do believe 8A is Budget Committee has already been approved at a special council meeting, and it's only up for errors and omissions.
Correct.
So 8B is fair game, but the other ones are already approved.
I agree, as well as those under 7. Councillor Columbus?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did speak to the clerk earlier about this, and he advised me that we really couldn't pull them, so I'm a bit confused here.
We're not pulling them.
We're not. Okay, I thought Councilor Rabbit said...
The reports of the committees
Right.
will be going through, though, as per usual, the Ag Committee and so on and so forth, and if there's some motion or something within that you want to pull, that's no problem, but the Budget Committee minutes of, minutes of the budget meetings have already been approved at the special council meeting.
So all those that we took recorded votes on for closures, we can't discuss that, is that it?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I see the deputy clerk shaking her head, yes, thanks.
Councillor Van Passen?
Madam Mayor, and again, as a point of order, I would ask the deputy clerk, even the committee and council, you normally need 24-hour notice, so we would have to waive that in order to discuss a particular item?
Through the mayor, that is correct. If council has an issue with it, we could go that route, but we took that yesterday being a holiday that we would allow it. But again, if council has issue to that, then we'll take additional direction.
Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Also not in the agenda, and I would like to put forward a notice of motion. Would you like me to discuss that when we get to that in the
We
agenda?
can do that at the time. Thank you. Anyone else? I've never had so much discussion on the agenda before. Okay, so in that case, a motion moved by Councillor Van Passen, seconded by Councillor Geisens, that the agenda be approved as presented. All those in favor? It's carried. Sorry, my apology. That was the addition of the deputation. And next, any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. There's no consent items or presentations today, so we are going to move on to communications. And the first is communication from Toby Barrett in regards to the Great Lakes Protection Amendment Act. And that motion has been moved by Councillor Van Passen, seconded by Councillor Geisens, that it be received as information. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? And that's carried. Next item under communications is from John Lennox from Dover Coast Development regarding the Port Dover Servicing Interim Control Bylaw. It's been moved by Councillor Taylor and seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, and so the clerk's advising me this is probably a good point for our deputation to come forward. If you could please state your name and address at the podium, and just to be advised, you have 5 minutes for your presentation.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you, Madam Mayor, councilors. What brings us here today is some discussions. My name is Linda Van Andrieschie. I live at 847 13th Concession, RR number 1, Langton. I'm here representing a concerned residents of Norfolk. Who are we? We are a group of concerned and dedicated residents representing collective groups of representatives from recreation, culture, community organizations in Norfolk County. Our vision, to have well-funded and viable community, cultural, and recreational facilities and services which are readily accessible to all Norfolk residents. Our mission is to work with Norfolk County Council, county employees, representatives of recreation, culture, and community organizations to seek synergies, create new partnerships, volunteer, fundraise, and whatever else takes to help support each local community of Norfolk County. Our principles: we will remain positive. We will make decisions that are data and fact-based and are good for the residents of Norfolk County. We will work with groups and local government officials to develop synergies and solutions. We will be transparent by providing updates on our ongoing endeavors. We appreciate being given the opportunity to address council. Our arenas, community centers, and cultural facilities are the lifeblood of Norfolk and provide a sense of community. And these amenities help attract families to locate in Norfolk County. Recently, Norfolk County Council proposed a 2020 budget has included closure and alignment of museums and changing of rec centers facilities to senior center, and developing an RFP process for all remaining arenas as per option 5, section 10 of the budget. Today, council votes on the entire budget, which includes those RFP processes for our arenas. The approved budget item, the staff issue RFPs for each arena to seek private or community operators, and that staff report upon the RFPs by the end of June 2020. And that if successful proponents for the RFPs do not come forward, Norfolk County will proceed to close a further arena in September 2020. It has been confirmed that Mayor Chop has entertained a meeting between management of the Royals junior hockey team as well as Mr. Jason Burgess, without user groups having been consulted. If it is considering that council would not consult with their own RFAB committee, which is set up to advise on all issues regarding recreational facilities, with members of that committee were concerned that the public was not being consulted. Equally concerning is that council is only considering having some of their facilities privatized. If an RFP process, there is a publicized information session for all interested parties that takes place after an RFP is issued. The RFP process for the arena is part of the 220 budget, and its approval is part of today's council meeting. In other words, the process has not been approved by council. Why are any decisions taking place? The meaning of that is, if you're going without having RFPs proposed to community groups, why would it be that some members would come and meet with private organizations? I feel that to be personally inappropriate. Even if RFP process is approved today, one of the interested parties have been given information on a one-to-one basis rather than information session for all interested parties. This doesn't seem correct in my mind. The county is now at jeopardy if Langton Royals submit a successful RFP bid. Other interested parties could sue the county for an unfair process.
You have 1 minute remaining.
This is not way to do business. In regards to we're well aware of that. In regards to option 5, the budget dealing with the hockey arena consolidation, we, the residents of the county, request both the time and the opportunity to work with the county to discuss possible ways of identifying efficiencies for the facilities prior to having any RFP process. The heart of these communities is at stake. We respectfully ask that council make a motion to place a moratorium on the closures of all recreational, cultural, and community facilities, including the proposal of RFP process, and to allow the residents to work with the county and the RFAB committee on finding ways of keeping the facilities open. Unfortunately, it appears that this is the easy way out for the council to shut down facilities without consulting, rather than work with the residents of this county to develop a partnership towards a better Norfolk. Let the residents of Norfolk be a part of the solution. You have our support to work collectively. Not doing so will put our county in peril. We also ask that the council establish town halls, of which you conveniently did today to tell us that you're coming out to Norfolk on Thursday. Please ensure enough prior notice.
We're just at the time for 5 minutes, so I'll give you another minute there if you're able to wrap up here quickly.
Please ensure enough prior notice is given to residents so that they can attend and be heard by council, at least a week. And hopefully, you yourself, the mayor, could be a participant with this. The role of the county is to provide services to the county residents. Privatization is a slippery slope. What else will we privatize when we still have issues when finalizing 2021 budget? The bottom line, our community is here to work with you to solve some of these problems. If council's willing to work on solutions, and if so, is council planning of going forward, can this plan be shared with user groups and the county residents? Thank you very much. I'll entertain any questions if you have any.
Any questions from councilors?
I'll firstly apologize for the fact that I only had a few hours to get this prepared because we were so concerned about today's meeting. So I do apologize for that.
No problem. Any questions from councilors? Okay, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
have a motion to receive the deputation as information. Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? Mr. Burgess, did you have any comments you wanted to make, or?
Sure, I'll just address the one comment. With regards to the contact of the Royals, there was contact made by myself to the operator. I know the operator is not necessarily watching budget deliberations, so I pointed out to him stuff that's in the public realm, i.e. the implication of the budget that was approved and what the implication could be. I also informed him of the RFP process that was coming forward. Again, that's also in the public realm. The design of the RFP will be to encourage community groups, as the presenter had noted, to look for solutions to work with the county to keep, these assets in, in community space and being used to benefit the community. So the purpose of the RFP is to do exactly what the presenter had said. And there was no implication on the RFP process because everything that was discussed was essentially a heads up to the operator there of everything that's in public realm today. The reason I reached out is because he may have bigger business implications to his business that he operates out of that arena.
Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say that maybe ask Linda if I could borrow that speech, because everything she says is exactly what council intends to do. Maybe we didn't do a very good job of rolling it out, getting the facts out there early enough, but that's exactly what I wanted to hear. We want to work with the communities to find ways to make it happen. What historically has been going on with the finances of the county are not sustainable. We need to find better ways to do things. We need to work with our communities, and unless we have the support of the communities, we will accomplish nothing other than get yelled at. But everything she said, that's exactly what we want to do. And again, I can apologize. 2 weeks ago asked about the, starting with a meeting in Langton. I know it's a short announcement, but I also read that they have like over 3,000 people on a Facebook group, so there should be no problem getting the word out. And I look forward to sitting down with them and getting their ideas and see if we can get to that solution collectively and use synergies. And she has a lot better vocabulary than I have, so I appreciate sitting down with them, and I'll be there on Thursday to meet with them one-on-one. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Van Passen. So again, just a reminder to everybody, it will be this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. That will be the first of others to come. So if you aren't able to attend Thursday, we certainly will be rolling out an additional list once we're able to confirm facility availability for some additional dates. Okay, so moving on to approval of minutes. Are there any errors or omissions to the open and closed minutes of the regular council minutes of January 22nd, 2020, the council budget minutes of January 29th, 2020, and the special council minutes of January 30th, 2020, February 4th, 2020, and February the 11th, 2020? Councillor Rabbits.
Thank you, through you. Promise it's not controversial. I just have a question about page 19. Rabbits Martin says that we deferred Economic Development Advisory Board to February. It's now the last meeting in February, and we haven't had an opportunity to review appointees to that advisory board. We have a meeting next month, and I've been asked by the chair if it's to take place or if they have a mandate to serve in that capacity, since we haven't ratified appointees to that committee. So my question was just pertaining to that particular motion. We said February, it's last council meeting in February, and I need to know what to tell my advisory group in terms of, are we meeting in February or when can we expect those appointments to take place?
Thanks, Councillor Rabbits. Paula, did you have any comments on that?
I apologize, Councillor Rabbits. I was looking for something else in the minutes, so Councillor Martin indicates she can speak to it.
Thank you. I only know the answer to this because I too had asked, and I heard back from Andy that those appointments will be coming forward, I believe, on March 10th, which is our CIC meeting, and that's when it ended up being deferred to. So I feel as though the meeting should go ahead, and clerk's office was having a discussion about sending someone for minutes and so on and so forth, but the appointments won't come forward until it's March 10th or 11th, whatever that second Tuesday is.
Thank you for that update. I'll be pleased to let the chair know that the meeting is taking place on schedule, and we'll ratify appointments in March. Appreciate that information.
Thanks, Councillor Rabbits, for that clarification. Councillor Columbus.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question with respect to the special council meeting, January 30th? Okay, it's at the top of page 34 of the agenda package, and it states there that it's actually seconded by me, moved by Councillor Taylor. and it's that council direct the mayor and legal staff to negotiate an employment contract with the confidential selected candidate under the agreed upon terms, and that the mayor report back to council at the first available meeting. So when are we going to have that meeting?
That would be my apologies. We had made the announcement with Jason at the Economic Development Forum, so I think he's here and he's
Right,
on board.
I know the announcement was made at the symposium, and I thought it was coming back to us. Was my concern.
I guess could we almost add? Paula has not yet completed drafting the document yet, so that was why
Right, I was just curious what the final terms and conditions of the agreement were. The final of the document hasn't been agreed to. The terms that were established by council at the meeting that you gave me direction to be able to negotiate the agreement under have all been met and not exceeded. So that was the reason. Paul is just working on finishing the drafting, and when it's signed, I will certainly let you guys know that it's been signed. Okay, so any errors or omissions? Okay, seeing none, they will be signed by myself and the county clerk and affixed with the corporate seal. Moving on to reports of committee. Okay, so just getting some clarification here from the deputy clerk. So the first one is just in regards to the minutes. So just motion moved by Councillor Taylor and seconded by Councillor Martin that the budget committee minutes open and close of January 28th and 29th be approved.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do want to speak to this in terms of an error or an omission. It's not contained within our report itself. I want to address some comments that were made in the media regarding the 15 minutes that were taken to pass all of these various motions. And I just wanted to have an opportunity to speak to that because it's not reflective of what actually took place and what's in our report. I could save it for general announcements, or I could do it now.
Could we do it in
within 2
general
minutes.
announcements? Is that okay? And we'll go through these.
Yeah, we can
and then
circle back
and
to
then
it. I just figure we have a full queue tonight.
That sounds good. Okay. Any errors, omissions, corrections? All those in favor? And that's carried. Next, motion moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the council and committee minutes of February 11th be approved with the exception of Resolution 16, which has been pulled for further deliberations. Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I'd actually like to take a look on page 58 at number 13 as well. I know we had a big discussion about this. The actual language in the last section of the motion, Paula and I had a conversation today, and we think it's suitable that it should fully state purposes of parking and sidewalks in Port Dover. Whether Mr. Godby uses that later or not is up to him, but I'd like to make that correction, please.
Okay, the clerk will make that correction. Oh, Paula?
It was actually or. Sidewalks or. That reflects the original.
Thank you. The other one I had pulled for further discussion, and again was able to connect with staff today, so it is suitable to be left as is. Thank you.
So we're not pulling resolution number 16 then any longer?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion on that one? All those in favor? And that's carried. Next, motion moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Huffman, that the public hearing committee minutes of February 4th, 2020 be approved. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Next is moved by Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the Recreational Facilities Advisory Board minutes of February the 3rd, 2020 be approved. All those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was hoping to ask a question about that report before we took that vote.
Go ahead.
I just happened to notice in the minutes of that meeting, it indicates and I'm referring to page 69 on our council agenda, just for clarification, it indicates that the next meeting is going to be held on February the 3rd, 2020, and I don't know if that's an incorrect. So is it possible for someone who's on that committee to correct that next meeting date?
Thanks, Councilor Shelley. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. It is an error, and it will be March 2nd.
Okay, moving on. Motion's been, Councilor Columbus.
Mayor, I had a question with respect to that RFAB meeting. That's where we are, right?
Yep.
Was there any concerns expressed with respect to our budget discussions at this particular meeting?
Somebody that was in attendance?
With respect to closures and that type of thing, being that it's all tied into the network of recreation.
Councilor Rabbits, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you. Yes, Councillor Columbus, there's a number of concerns that were expressed. The advisory board felt that they were not consulted, as much of our residents feel that they were not consulted throughout the process. There's still a lot of unanswered questions, some of which have been answered through one-on-ones, the website update regarding the fallout or the debrief from our budget deliberations. And there was a request for some more information, some of which may be confidential and for closed session from the group. And there is a motion to that effect within our minutes here, whether that's advanced at council or not, to be received as information. The views are in bullet point E and 1 on page 69 of our agenda. So it's before you there, and whether or not the board here actions that, I guess is up for our deliberation this evening. But really there was a number of concerns regarding what's to come next, because there is a lot of uncertainty in the community, and that was a feeling that I shared with my fellow RFAB committee members.
Any further discussion on that? Okay. So if we want to do that again then, motion's been moved by Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the Recreational Facility Advisory Board minutes February 3rd, 2020 be approved. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next one is the Energy Conservation Committee minutes of December 13th, 2019, moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Huffman. Any discussion on that one? All those in favor? And that's carried. That the Norfolk County Public Library Board minutes of December 18th, 2019 be approved, moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Huffman. Any discussion there? All those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Van Passen, sorry.
Are those approved or received as information?
That the minutes be received as information. I'm just reading off my motion sheet here. Thanks. Next is that the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board minutes of January 27th, 2020 be approved. Moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Geisens. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? And that's carried. Next, that the Delhi BIA minutes of November 14th, 2019 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Geisens, seconded by Councillor Columbus, or Councillor Van Passen, sorry. All those in favor? It's carried. That the Norfolk County Climate Change Adaptation Committee minutes of January 16th, 2020 be approved. That's been moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Geisens. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, that's it for committees. Moving on to staff reports. So the staff report, first staff report we have is DCS 20-22. Norfolk County has initiated an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment to update the drinking water source protection policies and associated mapping. The Long Point Region Source Protection Plan was updated and the changes came into effect on March 25th, 2019. The proposed amendments will implement the changes in the official plan and zoning bylaw. I guess, Mr. Vaughn, is that you? Thanks.
Thanks very much. So a new quantity and quality policies were added to the Long Point Region Source Protection Plan and approved by the Ministry of Environment on March 11, 2019. These policies came into effect on March 25, 2019. Planning staff hosted a drop-in open house on November 13, 2019, and no comments were received as a result of that open house. The proposed amendments will ensure that our official plan and zoning bylaw reflect the most recent information regarding source water protection in the county. Planning staff recommend approval, and this is an amendment to the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Thanks, Matt. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Van Bassen.
Since we've been through the provincially significant wetland situation already once this year that we still haven't resolved, again, all we're doing is including mapping that's done by the Source Water Protection Committee. It's been approved by the ministry, and we're just including it so that people are aware of it. It's something that is beyond our control. We're just being polite and including it.
Through the mayor, that is correct.
Any further questions, comments? In that case, I have a motion moved by Councillor Columbus and seconded by Councillor Geisens that the proposed general amendment to the Norfolk County official plan and Norfolk County zoning bylaw to implement policies and mapping related to source water protection, file number OPNPL 2019115 and ZNPL 2019404 be approved for reasons set out in the report DCS 20-22, and that no public input has been received for this application and therefore will be considered as part of this decision. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, there's just been a request from Paula, just so I guess Matt can get going home. If we could skip ahead to Bylaw 10 Echo, 7-Z 2020. It's a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1Z 2014 as amended for property described as affecting all lands within Norfolk County in the name of Norfolk County. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, in that case then, if I could have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Michele, seconded by Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Matt. On to the next staff report. That's staff report PW 20-11. That's in regards to the Energy Conservation Committee terms of reference.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Council, what you have in front of you is staff report PW 20-11, Energy Conservation Committee terms of reference. This is essentially a housekeeping item that's been lingering out for a while. This committee was formed in 2003. Currently it consists of one Norfolk County councillor, a representative from one of each of the Norfolk County divisions, including one member from our corporate leadership or senior leadership team, and one private citizen. Essentially, they meet quarterly to discuss different strategies and ideas to guide the county's future for energy conservation and our energy demand management plans. So they have operated since 2013 without a formal term of reference. So this is being brought forward to you today just as, like I said, a housekeeping item to get that formalized. And if you have any specific questions, I will gladly entertain them.
Thanks, Jason. Any questions? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Jason. I don't have a question so much as just a comment that I'd like to commend whoever drafted the terms of reference for. Page 121, let's see here, item F, prepare and distribute agendas and schedule meetings. I think that we're hearing more and more when we create these committees and we encourage our community members to spend their time volunteering on these committees that we want to hear organically from them. And so what we don't want is staff leading the discussion and charting the discussion. I want the community members who are showing up to volunteer their time to draft their own agendas and drive their own conversation topics. I certainly think it's great and part of the point to have staff add to the agenda and say, I think that we should discuss this pending item that is of importance to Norfolk County. But at large, I think it's really great here and really important that the chair draft their own agenda to keep the conversation organic and from what those people are here for. So I just wanted to commend whoever created these terms of reference, and I think that that is wonderful.
Councilor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And one of the other reasons that this housekeeping matter is being brought forward, there is so much expertise in this community that would do this committee a lot of good, and we're hoping to be able to draft in a few extra volunteers and let them become new members of the committee. So, currently we have one member sort of at large from the public, so the hope is that if we can find some extra help and make use of their knowledge base and their experience, we'll take them. So that's my little ad for anybody who wants to volunteer. So.
Thank you, Councilor Van Passen. Anyone else? Okay, so in that case, I have a motion that's been moved by Councilor Martin and seconded by Councilor Taylor that staff report PW 20-11 Energy Conservation Committee terms of reference be received as information, and that Council approve the Norfolk County Energy Conservation terms of reference. All those in favor? And that's carried. Moving on now, staff report PW 20-16 regarding a single source supply of composting services. Thanks, Marissa.
So staff report PW 20-16 is a follow-up to staff report that was brought forward last year, PW 19-13, in regards to composting services. So last year there was an approval for a 1-year extension. And this year, so the contract expires March 31st of 2020, and we're coming forward asking for a further extension of that single source supply. So in 2019, we composted 2,100 tons of leaf and yard waste through both curbside collection and depot collection. And as we move forward this year trying to prepare the tender documents to procure those services, we've come across some roadblocks that we didn't discover last year, being our contracts for curbside collection and transfer station operations are intertwined with the composting services. So the current curbside collection contract expires September 28th of 2024. While we do have wording in the contract that allows us to make that change as to where our material goes, it's not preferable because it will have an increased cost to the contractor that may have not been factored in. The other one would be the transfer station contract, which expires of October of this year with an additional 5-year extension. At the time of contract execution, the contractor indicated T. DeVos Trucking as the proposed destination, and pricing for this service was determined based on the final destination going to T. DeVos Trucking. With that contract, we're not able to make any changes to that. In addition, we also have the challenge of a consolidation point. So if we're required to take our material outside of Norfolk County, we would need an area to combine all of the curbside material and the transportation material into a larger vehicle to take it to a destination. So at this time, in addition for that consolidation point, we would also need capital funds to create a consolidation area in the form of a concrete pad or something along those lines, as well as amending our environmental compliance approval with the Ministry of Environment. So at this time, we're asking for a single source supply of composting services to T. DeVos Trucking from Langton with the ability to negotiate a cost per ton rate, which appears to be the most viable option based on these roadblocks that have come up. The initial term of the contract would be from April 1st of 2020 to September 28th of 2021, with the option to extend the contract on the same terms for 3 additional one-year extensions. This option provides budgetary savings as well, because we would eliminate the cost for haulage, which was budgeted in this year with the knowledge that this contract was expiring. And then in the future, this would allow us to align all of these contracts. We would procure the composting services first, so that way we wouldn't run into these roadblocks again with potential cost changes and things like that.
Thanks, Marissa. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's a lot of dates and stuff in there, and I'll see if I got this straight, but the destination contract will expire in October 2020 with the option of a 5-year renewal. Is it possible to extend that one to line up with that September 28th, 2021 date, and then put in the conditions the same as what you're proposing here of a bunch of 1-year extensions if need be, rather than 5 years all or nothing on that one, and try to get them lined up a little better? Is that possible?
So through the mayor to Councillor Van Passen, so the challenge with the contract that's expiring October 2020, so that's the transfer station where residents are bringing their material in via their own vehicles. That's a signed contract. It was a 5-year contract with a 5-year extension. So unfortunately, there's no single-year extensions. It's a 5 years. So that one we can't really change because it's signed and.
That would be my question. Is it possible to sit down and talk to them and see if you can change it?
So through the mayor to Councillor Van Passen, apparently we can do so, but it would require council approval, and then it would be another single source.
I would be open to that proposal.
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Passen, we would need direction then to enter into negotiations with that contractor from council.
Just Councillor Van Passen, go ahead.
I would happily give them staff direction to go do that and use the skills of our staff, and I've seen them negotiate in the past, so they do a good job.
Just give me 1 second.
Through the mayor to Marissa, sorry, can you just give the name of the other contractor again, please?
Sure, it's Walker Environmental Group.
Okay, so Councillor Rabbits, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, my question was in a similar vein. I'm on page 129, attachment 1, looking at the waste management summary of contracts. If we look at the transfer station collection of leaf waste, looks like Walker Environmental is the current contractor. Expiry date's October 2025. My question was about the RFPQ that took place in 2014. In Norfolk County for procurement, we often have a request for proposal. Sometimes a request for qualification comes a little later, and it's been described as sort of an envelope system. Have I made the first envelope? Usually it's a qualification, and then the second envelope would be, is my proposal being considered? Have I been vetted? Can I do the job? Can my company bid for the contract? So I was just wondering, is that sort of like a one envelope system or a one window where you have your proposal and your qualifications coming in at once, or have I mixed up the acronym?
Through the mayor to Councillor Rabbits. So that whole thing that happened was a little bit complicated. So it was under the RFPQ was under the alternative technologies for waste. So that was the incineration piece of it. And then I guess at the time, council had also directed staff to work with Walker's Environmental on the transfer station piece as well. So that was kind of an add-in afterwards from what my understanding is on the historical piece of that.
Okay, and a follow-up to that, second kick of the can, are we looking at making things a little bit less complicated? I'm more interested in, for the person that may be considering applying for that bid, upon council's direction to go seek another bid, it would be nice for us to have an opportunity in chamber here to explain what that process looks like in advance of October 2025. But I believe, that October 2025 date is foregoing, going with a single source, assuming that we're going to be renewing for another 5-year term this evening. Would I be correct in that?
I'm sure there's a joke there about 3 people trying to get one answer. Waste management has a lot of moving balls right now because of provincial legislation that has come down called extended producer responsibility, which I'm sure council is aware of, and there's transition periods from 2023 to 2025. So I think what's appropriate is for staff to bring back a fulsome report because it impacts a whole bunch of items, and there's some unknowns still out there on exactly when we would have to transition. And the important thing is providing some flexibility because we may be asked to transition in 2023 or 2024 or 2025, and we need our contracts to be lined up with that. So I think for council's benefit, I think staff should come back with kind of a rollout of what the strategy is for procurement between now and 2025 for all those items. Because unfortunately it is complex at this point in time.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And that was my intention. Currently, what's in front of us is to execute a contract to extend the existing supplier from October 1st, 2020 to September 28th, 2021 with a bunch of options of single 1 year at a time things. The other one on the table is an all or nothing 5-year contract that puts us from 2020 to 2025. I'd like to see if they can negotiate a deal where that contract lines up with a bunch of 1-year extensions because of all the changes coming through, that if we need to change the whole system completely according to new provincial rules, that we have the option of doing that and not be locked into a 5-year contract down the road.
Through you with that, I feel that it'd be prudent for us to divide the question. If we could separate that element from the rest of the report, perhaps we could pass what's before us, and then we could get that future date when we could have a future staff report coming back to council.
Questions? Did you guys have something else to add, or? No. Okay. So the first part then, if Councillor Rabbits wants that divided, that staff report PW 20-16, single source supply of composting services be received as information, and that council permit a single source supply as outlined in Norfolk County's purchasing policy ES-02, section 4.8.4 for composting services from T. DeVos Trucking for leaf and yard waste for an initial term from April 1st, 2020 to September 28th, 2021, with an option to extend the contract on the same terms and conditions for 3 additional 1-year extensions, and further that the interim general manager public works be authorized to negotiate and execute an agreement with T. DeVos Trucking Limited for leaf and yard waste composting services for an initial term April 1st, 2020 to September 28th, 2021, with the option to extend the contract on the same terms and conditions for 3 additional 1-year extension, and further that staff be directed to enter into negotiations with Walker Environmental Group. Can I have a mover? Councillor Van Passen, seconded by Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? Carried. So Rabbits, and I'm going to go with the second part now. And further, that staff be directed to bring back, and you can correct me here if you want something else, a rollout plan with the extended producer responsibility. What's the best way that you want that worded, Jason?
That staff will bring back a report with regards to the procurement for all the contracts for waste and waste collection prior to June 1st? Sure. Prior to June 1st.
Okay, perfect. Moved by Councillor Rabbits and seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? And that's carried. This is the shortest council meeting we've ever had. Moving on to bylaws now. Motions moved by Councillor Martin and seconded by Councillor Taylor that bylaws 2020-10, 2020-12, 2020-13, and 2020-14 be approved, signed by the mayor and county clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. Any discussion on that? All those, Councillor Van Passen?
I don't know if it's just complaining, but the bylaw 2020-12, we're finally going to get around to collecting some money for municipal drains that go back to 2006, I believe is the oldest one on there. I'm glad that this is in front of us finally. So.
We're making progress. Any further discussion? Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just going to ask the clerk to make a slight correction on bylaw 2020-10, the fifth paragraph down, to remove the D from the word premise. It says currently premised. Should be premised. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. And now, moving on to motions. Councillor Van Passen, you have a motion on the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The long story short, we have some issues with water in Port Dover. We have our bulk haulers that bring water to most of the residents along the lake who are on cisterns rather than on wells, and they're no longer allowed to pick up the water out of Dover. They have to go to some other source somewhere in the county to get it, which costs extra time, extra money, extra fuel, and plus the price increase in the water itself. Now, I sort of was pretty plain on this last fall when we set these rates that there is a big increase in the bulk water price, and still for the life of me, I don't understand how when you pick something up at the plant, it costs 3 times more than having it delivered through the pipes right to somebody's house. Never really thought that was fair in the first place, but we were going to do a study on that to verify the cost, except with all the other issues, we've now put off that study towards the end of the year. So we've got all the residents along the lakeshore are paying extra for their water. They're paying extra because of the extra cost of the haulers. So I'm proposing that as an interim measure to try to get some level of fairness across the county on what it costs for a basic necessity like water, that we drop the bulk water rate by $1 cubic meter. So it's only going to be like 2.5 times as much as what you get it for in the pipe rather than 3 times as much. And that is the motion, and that would just be a temporary matter until we have the study done and can get the prices verified, or we solve the problem in Dover. So hopefully I could get a seconder for that motion, and then we could have some further discussion.
Okay, is there a seconder? Councillor Taylor? And any discussion on that, or Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Mr. Godby, when we're looking at a study for something like that, would you be able to estimate, I won't hold you to anything, but a bit of a timeline that we could get some information back around the table and know how long that rate could possibly stick for?
Through the mayor to Councillor Martin. Right now, currently, the reason for the delay on that, our own water rate study was due to the the discussions going on with Haldeman and the rate study that they're completing, which will feed into our interurban water supply study, which is the firm long-term direction of council. Depending on that decision, when that report is finalized, that will really be at the time when we can initiate our own rate study again. So I'm going to ballpark that at being at least 6 months out before that decision is being put forth to council, and then add 6 months. So we're essentially looking at about a year before we're going to have more of a firm completed rate study that will kind of reevaluate these rates. So essentially you're kind of looking at the 2021 rates.
Further questions, Councilor Roberts?
Are you questions, or are we in discussion? We have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor. There wasn't a chance to ask staff questions before the motion was put on the floor. So if there's questions with regards to the financial implications or anything, I would say you're more than welcome to do it since we didn't have a chance before.
Okay, more of a comment. Well, I appreciate Councillor Van Passen's effort to bring some fairness. This was a very difficult budget, and I believe that the rate budget coming up next year, or this year I should say, is going to be just as difficult. We're looking at a situation where we are potentially closing community centers, privatizing community centers, consolidating them, working in partnership with community groups. And I think that our user rates, whether they be water, in terms of access to these facilities, we're going to have a really difficult discussion at our upcoming rate budget. I have had a number of different individuals reach out to me indicating that they'd be willing to pay more for rates, whether they're pertaining to water or for access to these different buildings, if they had realized, we're looking at the drastic measures that we have entertained. So with that, I understand that this would bring some fairness considering the market conditions. We as a council, as a public sector, don't have much of an influence in terms of what those bulk haulers charge their customers. Unfortunately, when the cost of business goes up, often that cost is passed on to the consumer. We could choose to subsidize that activity or not. And so with that, I understand where you're coming from. I appreciate you fighting for those individuals that are on bulk water service. But at this point in time, I feel that we can't go back on some of the decisions that we made with regards to rates. And I imagine that we're going to have an even more difficult discussion when that rate budget comes up again next time. So with that, I'm not supporting the motion, but I appreciate where it's coming from, trying to bring some fairness to the way that we charge our water.
Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That was a really good job of mixing apples with oranges, because let's remember the rate-supported budget is the rate-supported budget. It has absolutely nothing to do with the levy-supported budget, which is what is involved in community centers, arenas, all that. And we do not subsidize the rate-supported budget with levy dollars. We don't take rate dollars into the levy. So those are two totally different issues. And again, like if somebody could ever explain to me how we can set a rate that much higher for me to go pick something up at myself, it doesn't need to be pumped through miles of lines, which is why we need to collect more money, is to upgrade our pumping systems, upgrade the thing. This is just to pick up the water. Yes, there is a cost involved, but there is not a cost involved. There's an estimated number in the budget for how much they expect to sell. If these haulers start driving just that little bit farther and pick it up in Haldeman for less than, what, 2/3 or 1/3 of the price what we charge, there'll be no income at all in Norfolk County. So if they don't spend the money, it's not a subsidy, it's just that they didn't buy that product here. So again, there is an estimated amount in the budget that would be reduced by this, but there's no guarantee that they were going to buy it here in the first place. So, you can play with numbers all we want, but there's no subsidy involved anywhere. There's no crossover from taxpayer dollars to that. It's just a matter of trying to make a basic right of clean potable water affordable to everybody at the same level, rather than gouging one particular group over the other.
Councilor Shelley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question for staff on this one. If Councillor Van Passen's motion regarding the price of this water. Just want to make sure that over time, because I think we are a little bit maybe disappointed, of course, and I realize we have no control over this, but the weight water study is going to be a little further down the road, I think, than we anticipated when we talked about this originally. So I just want to ask staff if our current facilities can handle the increase of Port Dover water haulers, as an example, going to Port Rowan.
Through the chair to Councillor Michele, we do have capacity within the existing other distribution systems where we do have bulk depots available. Any of the contractors that are currently set up in Port Dover are also able, it's an electronic system, and they're also able to be set up to pick up in Delhi, Waterford, Simcoe, or Port Rowan. It's the exact same operation in each of those towns as it is in Port Dover, so they can definitely do that.
Thank you, Jason.
Councillor Van Passen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I did check about the fact, it's really the ones affected who historically hauled out of Dover, whether there was a possible way to give them a different deal than the other regular water haulers, whether there's a way to not make it for everybody, only if it gets delivered to certain areas that are affected by the closure of Port Dover. But all of those things would cost more for administration than the cost of just giving a flat cut across the board. So I've tried to be as fair as possible and get the best deal for the county and the best deal for the citizens, but this is just the simplest, easiest, cheapest way to give a few people something at a reasonable price.
Thank you, Mayor Chop, and through you, Councillor Van Passen, I'm wondering if we could put a friendly amendment out there to have a time limit to revisit this as well, just so that doesn't get lost in the mix of things and, the solutions out there, and then down the road we're still $1 less than we should be or anything like that.
Just, if I may, Madam Mayor, my understanding would be we have to do an amendment to the bylaw to get this implemented. And so it would automatically come up when we, again, review the rate budget in the fall. It would come up automatically at that time. So there's the one stopgap. And the second one is, my intention was a temporary thing until we solve the problem. But it sounds like that might be a little bit longer. But we'll be looking at it in the fall, irregardless of what we do.
So I appreciate we're in debate right now, but we still actually haven't even heard what financial implications we're looking at on this and where it's going to be funded from and so on and so forth.
Mayor, I think there's an estimate in the budget of how much they historically sold to the water haulers. That is an estimate, but that is predicated on the fact that they actually pick it up in Norfolk and not pick it up in Haldimand, or maybe some on the west end might even pick it up in Elgin, just because it's closer and it's cheaper, a whole lot cheaper at other municipalities to buy bulk water than it is to have it delivered directly to your home. So yes, there is a budget implication, but that's not a true number, that's just an estimate, right?
Correct, but our estimates are now being reduced from what they were when this council, as Councilor Ravitz has kind of pointed out, when we set our rate-supported budget. So I'm sort of interested to hear what the estimate is that we might be losing and, again, where it's going to be funded from.
Obviously, I made an error when we did the rate budget by allowing us to put in that high an estimate and knowing it wouldn't be true.
I was waiting for a question, so I didn't want to jump presuppose. The estimate in the budget, as Councillor Van Passen has noted, was 70,000 liters. That's what was put in the budget. That's based upon a 3-year rolling average. So if the average is obtained this year, a $1 reduction would result in $70,000. As Councillor Van Passen has pointed out, it is an estimate. If we're higher or lower, it does vary the budget, and that has implications on it. As far as a funding source, which was the mayor's second part of it, it would essentially be absorbed in by the reserve of the rate reserve.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. I guess some comments I did want to make in terms of comparing apples to apples. Looking at water rates specifically, I can recall when this council made the decision to freeze many of those rates, and in the subsequent year jacked them up 16.8%. And I just worry that we're in a similar scenario now where we made a decision to pay for this service, and now we're possibly thinking about reneging on that commitment. And then what implications does that have for our next rate-supported budget? It was a tough budget to get through before we even got into operating, and I just envision us setting ourselves up for an even larger potentially increase once we see those hard numbers next budget time. A wise man once told me, he's sitting in this chamber, that every day should be budget day. And I'm looking at these numbers thinking that, yeah, we're still continuing that conversation from that rate-supported budget, and that conversation will continue all the way through to that budget committee, and I'm sorry, I just can't support it.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I was the one who led the charge in 2019, even though I have nobody on Town Water and Sewer in Ward 4, trying to figure out why we would need to increase rates when we actually turned a profit. We had a 20-year capital budget that included $14 million in capital upgrades over the next 20 years. And never in my life was I seen a council get blindsided when it came to the 2020 budget. All of a sudden, we have $134 million in capital upgrades that are now required that magically appeared in 1 year. So yes, we did need to change our direction a little bit from 2019. But again, I'll keep going back to the point. You live in the urban area, you get your water at $1.53.1 per cubic meter. I go and pick it up myself in my own truck. I got to pay $4.32 per cubic meter without any cost of pipes or pumps or anything. I pick it up right at the source. I got to pay 3 times as much. If we drop the dollar cubic meter, they're still paying 2.25 times as much to pick it up themselves as if you get it delivered directly into your home. If somebody can explain how that is fair, I'd be more than happy to listen to it.
Further discussion? Okay, so the motion reads as follows. It's been moved by Councillor Geisens and seconded by moved by Councillor Van Passen, seconded by Councillor Michelle. Whereas the inability of water haulers to access bulk water in Port Dover has created undue hardship for local hauling businesses and their customers, and whereas Council has directed the review and study on the higher rates charged for bulk water haulers compared to bulk unmetered customers be delayed, therefore be it resolved that Schedule A to Bylaw 2019-113 be amended to adjust the bulk rate of $4.32 per cubic meters to $3.32 per cubic meters. And at this point, I'm going to ask the Deputy Clerk, though, if we approve this today, there's still a notice period that we need to undertake, is there not? And so what would be the next step?
Through the mayor to the mayor. In terms of the notice period, I would have to look to Jason for the specific, but for the bylaw itself, we would have to bring the bylaw back at the next council meeting, so a month's time.
Yeah, I'm not a clerk and I don't play one on TV, but I believe I believe if you did pass it today, you'd have to put the notice for the bylaw for the next council meeting, and that would probably be sufficient notice period for comment on the rate bylaw, because it'd be 3 weeks, correct? Yeah.
Councillor Columbus.
Mayor, could we get a recorded vote on this one, please?
Okay, Councillor Geisens. Yes. Councillor Rabbits.
No.
Councillor Columbus.
No.
Councillor Martin.
No.
Councillor Van Passen.
Yes.
Councillor Huffman.
No.
Councillor Michelle.
Yes.
Councillor Taylor.
No.
And Mayor Chop.
No.
The motion is defeated.
Okay, the next motion was originally a motion that I had put on the floor, but Councillor Huffman is actually going to move it this evening, and it's seconded by Councillor Taylor. Councillor Huffman, did you want me to read that out for you, or? Okay. Whereas Haldeman Norfolk MPP Toby Barrett has made inaccurate public statements about restructuring at the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit, and whereas to observers it appears that the office of Toby Barrett is directing Norfolk County and Haldeman County residents to file complaints with the Ombudsman of Ontario and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs in respect to municipal budgetary decisions arising from provincial funding reductions. And whereas neither MPP Toby Barrett nor his office have reached out to the Haldeman Norfolk Board of Health, Norfolk County Council, or senior staff of either organization to clarify relevant facts prior to providing inaccurate information to the public. Therefore, be it resolved that Council direct the Mayor to seek a meeting with the Honourable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, to address comments made by MPP Toby Barrett respecting Norfolk County budgetary decisions. So again, moved by Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any discussion? Councillor Columbus.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I will not support this motion. It is not appropriate for Norfolk County Council to support such a motion, as all municipalities are a creature of the province. Norfolk Council should not be dragged into bickering or vendetta with our MPP. Support for the Mayor's motion, or Councillor Huffman's motion now, only perpetuates animosity between Norfolk County and the provincial government, and it is essential more than ever now to work cooperatively to make things right, things happen here in Norfolk. Council support for such a motion will reflect badly on Norfolk Council as a whole and serve only to divide the residents of this county more so than it has divided them now. So with that, I would like to hear from the rest of the councillors how they feel about this. And I'm going to ask for a recorded vote also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to my colleagues, I feel that this is prudent in terms of the transparency of our council in terms of discussing our current situation with a representative from the provincial government. In fact, there has already been divisive comments made, and I think it prudent that this council is taking a step forward to avoid any further conflict and get things straightened out with the province. The province is the overseer of this council. And I think it's prudent that we encourage a discussion with the Minister of Municipal Housing and Affairs.
Councillor Hussman, Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could ask Councillor Columbus, if we were to delete the words comments made by MPP Toby Barrett and leave it at the Council directs the Mayor to seek a meeting with the Honourable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, to address Norfolk County's council budgetary decisions. Is that an acceptable amendment to that motion?
Councillor Van Passen, I don't think so. I just don't think we should be touching this whatsoever. I think we should just pick up the phone and make an appointment and do it civilly. Thank you.
Just to clarify, we have tried to organize a meeting. Councillor Huffman, did you have more? Anything further? Oh, sorry.
Councillor Geisens. Pardon, sorry.
Councillor Van Passen, sorry.
Oh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I would actually like to make that a formal amendment to the motion and delete comments made by MPP Toby Barrett respecting, so that the motion reads that seek a meeting with the Minister of Housing to address Norfolk County budgetary decisions.
Through the Mayor to Councillor Van Passen, my suggestion is that that would be a separate motion. An amendment needs to be germane or similar to the main motion, and I would say that if you're taking out specifically what it's regarding, then it is not related to that motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, Councillor Van Passen, if this motion does not pass, are you planning on making that motion immediately after?
well.
Councilor Rabbits.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. I want to echo some of the sentiment that was shared by Councillor Columbus with regards to the wording. It does seem combative to me, regardless of the intent. You know, I would hope that as a result of this letter, we'd have a genuine opportunity to sit down with the minister and our MPP, or even perhaps have a delegation appear before this chamber. That would be a desirable outcome to help mend the fence or build some bridges working together rather than being in opposition to each other, which seems to be the flavor of the wording of this letter as it stands. So if it's going to be sent off as is, I will not be supporting it. I think that it needs a little bit of wordsmithing and perhaps an olive branch to our MPP, and perhaps we could create an opportunity out of what seems to be some controversy before this council and within the community. So with that, I won't be supporting the letter as it is written, but I am interested in entertaining some amendments with good faith as the intent of the letter.
Further comments?
Okay, Councillor Geisens. No. Councillor Rabbits.
No.
Councillor Columbus.
No.
Councillor Martin.
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen.
No. No.
Councillor Huffman.
Yes.
Councillor Michele.
No.
Councillor Taylor.
No.
Mayor Chop.
Yes.
The motion is defeated.
Councilor Van Passen.
First time I've seen a windmill that runs on water. But could I put a motion on the floor that would read as follows: that council direct the mayor to seek a meeting with the Honorable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, to address Norfolk County Council budgetary decisions. Get rid of all the whereases.
Seconder. Councilor Hoffman. Did you want this one recorded? Councilor Michele, I see your...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have to agree with Councillor Van Passen. I'm a little bit hesitant to make this appear as though it's some kind of personal conflict that we're trying to emphasize with the member of our provincial parliament. I would prefer to just go through the regular avenues of having this meeting and accomplishing those goals in that way.
Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. So since I wasn't able to participate in the debate, I guess my challenge with this is that the statements that were made to the public on Toby Barrett's Facebook page and Twitter account were inaccurate with regards to this council's decisions, as we had to pass along the cuts that were sent to us, downloaded to us from the province. And I do take exception to that because I don't believe that this council has made comments in regards to the teachers, in regards to other cuts that the Ford government has made. We've stayed out of provincial issues, and I do find it quite concerning that our MPP has taken to Facebook to post inaccurate comments without coming and reaching out to council. So next is notices of motion, and I see Councillor Columbus. You have a notice of motion.
Yes, would you like me to speak to it? Yes. Previously, we were at budget discussion time. We were talking about going to a 2-year bulky item pickup. And at that time, I suggested to save a few dollars, we go back to a 3-year bulky item pickup, which would put the third year this year, I believe. Is that right, Jason? This coming year, 2020, would be this would be the second year? Okay. So anyway, that's the one on page 155. And then I was told by the clerk that we had to have this one on page 156 addressed. And so basically what we're asking now, there were a number of alternatives discussed, like do we have free days and certain week where you can bring your own bulky items to the disposal sites. And that's what it's about. So we're looking for have a report come forward as soon as possible so that we can have a bulky item pickup, or so taxpayers can get rid of their bulky items. Perhaps Melissa can chime in here and add some material to that.
Through the mayor to Councillor Columbus. So based on what was passed back in September under the waste management review, the bulky item program was supposed to take place in June of 2020. However, if we want to look at other options, we can bring a report back soon, because we have been getting questions and phone calls as to what's happening with that program. So probably within the next month we can bring something back for you. I've already reached out to neighboring municipalities to gauge as to what they're doing in their communities, so that'll provide some additional food for thought on that as well.
Madam Mayor, that is the gist of page 155 and 156, and I would ask that we deal with those items, which I'm moving.
Okay, so I have a motion sheet here, Councillor Columbus. Are you looking for a 2/3? You're not satisfied then with that and bringing back a report? You want something today, is that correct?
No, not really. I think we need a report on what we'd like. There were a number of different scenarios discussed at budget time as to how we'd handle the bulky items, and I suggest that we go to a report.
You're fine with the report then?
Right, yes.
Okay. Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, what is in the budget is a pickup in June 2020. And I want to clarify, are you asking that be changed and that we not have the bulky pickup item in 2020? Or do you just want a report of options after 2020 on whether possible ways to deal with this? Because you know, we argued a lot about this in last year's budget to get it to the 2 years, because, you know, for us people in the rustic countryside that can't have cheap water, now we got to put up with everybody's garbage when they dump it out on the side roads, and we got to pick it up because, you know, we can't do that for our people. So are you trying to drop this out of the 2020 budget, or are you just looking for the report in future on better ways to deal with it?
Well, originally, my thought was we should go back to every 3rd year rather than every 2 years. Right now, it's every 2 years, right?
Yes, based as
Right.
to what was passed in September, that change was to every 2 years.
Right, so my thought was every 3 years, going back to where we were traditionally doing that. But now, because there were a number of different scenarios put forward on permitting low-cost or free disposal times during the fall or spring, that we would take that route. There was a lot of discussion about that. So I'm still of the thought that we go every 3 years, or if Melissa has another scenario that she'd like to put forth in a report. I thought you were doing some work on it already, comparing what other municipalities do. I'd like to see a report. Maybe there's a better way to do it. Because when you put your bulky items, your mattresses and everything else out there, and it rains for 2 days, you're getting rid of a lot of wet water too. Thank you.
Councillor Shelley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess to Councillor Columbus, so just to clarify again, as Councillor Van Passen, I think, was trying to do, we have the spring 2020 bulky item pickup already in the budget. Would it be agreeable to, I still think, and I have gotten some suggestions from several residents about some opportunities for changing that program, but could we have the report come back? And I am a little bit confused. I thought we already had asked Marissa for a report some time ago to come back on these options that might exist. But if we could have the regular spring pickup, because frankly, I think there are residents already who are kind of planning for it. Spring's not that far away. We are already past the midpoint of February. I think we should leave it in there. And also, I would very much look forward to a report from Marissa regarding some options that might be at a lower cost.
Well, I'm open to anything that works and at a low cost. So I just note here on page 156, the bottom paragraph, it says, "And that the report be presented within a time frame to allow for program implementation in 2020. And I was thinking that whether it's the 2-year program or a 3-year program, I would think that the report would cover all those alternatives. That's what I was thinking.
Michelle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, given the fact that Marissa's indicated that she believes she can bring back a report in about a month's time, is that right, Marissa? I wonder if it would be prudent to wait until we actually get that report, and then we can have a much more fulsome discussion.
I just need some clarity. I'm lost here, to be honest with you, what's going on. So you're satisfied with the report coming forward? Do we need a motion for reconsideration to do that? I mean, we had a report that was already coming forward, was my understanding.
My understanding was from the clerk's office that we had to have a reconsideration.
But I think we're okay for a report to come to council. We're not changing it.
Let's speak to the expert, Deputy Clerk.
Through the mayor to Councillor Columbus, and I suppose with staff as well. The only reason we would need the reconsideration is if we're changing what council has already approved. So if what you're looking for is a change to the approval of the period of pickup versus just getting the staff report, then yes, you need the reconsideration. If all you want is further information on potential ways of pickup and uses, then you don't need the reconsideration. But if you want to change an already approved decision of council, you need reconsideration.
So right now, is our decision a pickup every 2 years? Is that our decision? Okay. I don't care for that. I was looking for a 3-year pickup to save some dollars.
I make a suggestion, Councillor Columbus.
Sure.
Would it not be prudent to have her come with the report? And then at that point in time, since it's not affecting anything right now, then we could have...
That's fine too, as long as we have an understanding.
We could establish a new program. Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you.
There's one question I still haven't got answered in my mind, and I am a little slow and sometimes don't follow things. Are we doing a pickup in June of 2020? You know, it's one thing, the staff can bring back a great report. That's going to take a month, another 3 weeks to get through our cycle of meetings to approve that. And then what do they do in the meantime? Because to put out a tender to get a contractor to do the pickup in June, you can't wait until May to do that. There's a time lag on that one. So we're ready the end of February. We're going to be end of March. So it's going to be April before we decide on anything of a report. And, oh, that's going to give them a whole month to put out tenders to get a contractor to do it. So either we decide now whether we're going to do a pickup in June as it's in the budget and as we argued so long on last year, and then we will still get a report in due time to deal with whatever's going to happen in 2021, 22, 23. But let's just be very clear that we are going to do a pickup. As Councillor Michelle said, they're ready for it already. They're stocking it up. They're just waiting for June so they can open the garage door and cart it to the end of the driveway.
I'm seeing heads around the table. That's the understanding. Even in the motion itself, I don't read that as removing that. It says the report be presented within a time frame to allow for program implementation in 2020. So you weren't looking to remove it in 2020, were you, Councillor Columbus?
I was looking to have a program every 3 years.
Right.
Rather than every 2
After
years.
this year.
No, this year.
You don't want it this year.
Move it to 2021.
Maybe we should do the reconsideration to get the report, even to get a report back, we should have a mindset.
Okay. So in that case, then, Councillor Columbus, I'm being told you're going to need a motion for 2/3 that the rules of order be waived to allow for the consideration of a notice of motion respecting reconsideration directly as a motion.
Perfect.
Is there a seconder? I need a seconder first. Is there a seconder? Okay. Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So if this motion to reconsider is defeated, we get our bulky item pickup in June 2020. and we can then direct staff to bring back a report in due time for options for 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25, right? That would be the process.
Okay, so I don't believe that there was a seconder, so it doesn't even need to be defeated. It's not moving ahead here. And that was already the plan. So 2020 was going to happen. We're going to get a report from Marissa with some new solutions moving forward, and just as the way it was in the budget deliberations. All good? 2020 is happening. Okay, so now, this is a motion. No other note, Councillor Martin, you had a notice of motion.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. After speaking with community members and with Public Works staff, it appears as though I need to put a notice of motion out that I'd be looking for a 2/3 reconsideration with regards to sidewalks on Don John Boulevard in Port Dover. Staff have questions, I have questions, community members have questions. So in order to have the fulsome dialogue, I need to put that notice of motion forward, look for 2/3 reconsideration on that. And I would also ask that staff put together some information, not in a report, just in a informal memo to council, so that I can start to brief some community members on that. But that is the reason for my notice of motion.
Thank you. Now, moving on to the action items you have on the agenda. Was there something for you to report with that?
It's just if there's any updates.
Great. Anything from council? Councilor Shelley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question about action item, the action item on page 161 and 2, action item 15, regarding the animal control provisions in Norfolk County. We had a proposed report back for Q4, quarter 4 of 2019. I am wondering if I could ask Ms. Bullis to indicate to us if that report on that topic is coming up shortly. Thank you.
Councilor Pass.
Yeah, I would think that action item can probably come off our list. It is now a moot point. The province has put in new legislation. It has answered all the questions about who is responsible to who. So, maybe it's time just to get it off of the list, since it's been hanging around for a while, and that's not our job anyway.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And while I certainly take Councillor Van Passen's point, I guess I would have to ask, what is council to do when we get these requests from people? I've got a sick raccoon hangs around my house all the time. I've called the OPP or whatever, and there still seems to be a lot of misinformation about what they are supposed to do. So that's why I would prefer that we have this illustrated more clearly for the public.
So I am of the view we do need some kind of report back to council. The new legislation is something I think we should be looking at. I have had some conflicting stories about whether or not service will be provided under that legislation for our community. And it has something to do with the fact that we do not have a relationship with the equivalent of an SPCA. So this is an area that I don't have a great deal of expertise in, so I apologize that it's taken me even this long. But I have, in fact, made some inquiries, spoken to a few people, but I'm sort of chipping away at it slowly. So I do intend to bring a report back. I don't promise that it will be quick, but it remains on my list, and I think it should remain on the list so that we can have some clarity.
Councilor Rabbits.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Being the originator of both the animal control provisions in Norfolk County, request for more information via staff report, and the animal control interim approach, that is item 16. I believe item 16 is the one that became a moot point when we had some announcements regarding animal welfare from the province, but I still would like some more information coming back in terms of how we deal with animal control in Norfolk County, There is some misnomers in the public to call your counselor or call the OPP, and I was hoping that by staff report we could nip some of those questions in the bud and sort of come up with a game plan. We don't have a functioning SPCA in our community. We are reliant on out-of-county services to provide animal control, and I think it is prudent for us to get that information coming back. In terms of timing, I would rather our staff feel that they have an opportunity to get the correct information, engage with the stakeholders that are present, and I don't think there's an incredible sense of urgency to get this done in Q1. So if I may, I was, again, the person that tabled this conversation, and I was very pleased to have unanimous support that there is some time for us to get back on this issue. In the spring, you know, the winter is going to thaw, and more of those critters, as Councillor Van Passen oftenly refers to them, are going to start coming out and being more active, and maybe that's going to prompt some more phone calls and some more conversations. So with that, I'd be pleased to see it continue on the list, and maybe we can kick the can down the road to Q2, Q3 of 2020.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to staff, I just wanted to ensure, I know that we had earlier discussions regarding this, and our communications department continuing to update the community on what the protocol is, and just reminding our residents that it is not the job of the OPP. So if that could continue to be something that the communication department work on, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Huffman. Anything further on there, Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. If I could call on Mr. Godby to just touch base with me on action item number 5. As a reminder, I was formally told by another staff member that that was actually a project that was getting wrapped into another job, and that the funding was there. However, it did not go forward, so I also look forward to sharing a bit of an update with community members who are interested in action item number 5.
Through the mayor to Councillor Martin. Unfortunately, I don't have any specific update to that one at this time, but we will be bringing back that information regarding sidewalks in March. So what I can do is I'll make sure and wrap that up. I believe there's 1 or 2 other sidewalk related issues that have been on the Public Works radar for a little bit of time. So I'll make sure to include this one, as well as I think there's 1 or 2 others. So back for that meeting in March.
Councillor Shelley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just, again, just a little housekeeping. I believe that maybe there's an error in the date on this template. Indicates last revised date is 2019. We'll make it 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, through you. I think I'd just like maybe a pulse check on item 27 through to 34. We have a lot of dates here that are to be determined. I'm not necessarily looking for a hard date for each and every item, but if there are any that we could disclose a date that's coming up or a ballpark for a quarter, I think that'd be very useful. Specifically, item 32, the grants process. I imagine that's also coming forward in March, as we'll be discussing appointees to the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board. That grant process is sort of part and parcel of a large part of what that board does. So I was wondering if that would also be coming forward in March.
Through the mayor to the councillor. Yes, these last items, which were basically come out of the budget deliberations, senior staff have not had an SLT meeting for various reasons. We do meet tomorrow, and that is on our list to get some dates in this. So this list will be updated after tomorrow's SLT with hopefully some dates, quarters.
Thank you for that, Bill. And so with that, we could expect at our next council meeting to have the to be determined, those lists will be updated?
Sure, yes. Okay.
Anything further? Councillor Huffman.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to staff, in regards to action item 7 on page 159, Road 45 Bridge, I just want to, I know that this has been an ongoing and we're looking for something back in Q2 20. I do want to remind staff that Waterford is still willing and waiting for the bridge to arrive in our premises at any point in time. Thank you very much.
Just wanted to jump in there actually as well. That one stuck out at me here. 2 things. One, have we received word yet on the Part 2 order? And the second part was, I don't recall there being direction to prepare an RFP for a design build, because we've been talking about this over and over since this began. Because there are only, I believe it's 4 prefab bridge manufacturers, that sort of the more strategic way to go about this would be first to determine which bridge manufacturer we're going to go with on the basis of, you know, steel availability and time to completion and when they can do all this. Once council has selected the bridge manufacturer, then we put out an RFP for the design process. So having spoken with other municipalities that are doing these prefab bridge, a prefab bridge process, that they suggested not doing a design build. So I don't understand where kind of the RFP for a design build has come into play here.
Through the mayor to the mayor and all of council. First update on that is we do not have any update back from the MECP on the status of those Part 2 orders. Our project manager on this file is regularly back and forth with them. However, MECP has not given us any indication one way or the other what their status is of those Part 2 bump up requests, and as to whether or not they will support the installation of a single lane bridge or whether they will push us back to the 2-lane bridge. So as that's kind of been in the provincial hands, there's not been any further progress on that file at this time, which kind of ties back to, we would have to go back to this resolution from January 30th of 2019 to see exactly if that is the exact wording from that. But at this time, we have not made any actions on issuing of an RFP, because at this point, we do not have firm direction on what size or type of bridge we will be installing.
Okay, on to general announcements. Councillor Rabbits, I'll let you start off.
Thank you. Through you, I think I want to start off with maybe some comments I'd like to make from our budgetary process. So I'm just going to flip to the Budget Committee minutes on page 41. And I am now on page 43. I'm just looking at our closed session items and wanted to provide a bit of a public service announcement for our public, as we have changed the way that we do business in Norfolk County in an effort to increase transparency. So I know that in the media it has been reported that it took us 15 minutes to make these various budgetary discussion items. There's Ontario Works Administration, provincial cost sharing, corporate services restructuring initiative, fleet restructuring, hockey arena consolidation, repositioning tourism and economic development services, museum consolidation, Simcoe's farmers market, service delivery model changes, office of the CAO and staffing changes, including land monetization. So you can see that in our deliberations, the timestamp's 11:09 a.m., and we concluded our closed session discussion at 2:33 p.m. and followed to vote on these items with a recorded vote in a public setting. And past practice was this type of conversation would happen behind closed doors, and the council would not pass those motions in public. The councillors would not have an opportunity to show their constituents whether they voted in favor or against, and we've changed this in an effort of increasing transparency. Unfortunately, the way that it's been perceived is that we are rushing through decisions, not properly deliberating those items, when in fact it took us the better course of 3 hours to make those decisions. So I just wanted to comment to the public that no, we did not pass items 2 through 10 in a 15-minute conversation. We did deliberate on each and every one of these items. There's a reason we go into closed session. We're talking about identifiable individuals, employees, we're receiving legal advice. That is unfortunately something that you cannot do in a public setting. Well, it's fortunate because it protects those individuals and it protects the corporation from indemnity. So there's a reason why we go into closed. As council members, our role often is to be the explainer, and when rules aren't understood, and even if you've had a public service announcement, sometimes you have to repeat yourself in order to get your message across. And I have no problem doing that with my constituents and with our voting public. So, I wanted to make an effort today just to acknowledge the timestamps in that report, that yes, we did deliberate on these items, ask questions of staff. It didn't take 15 minutes to go through those motions. It was quite arduous. And you can see even in the minutes, we did request a recorded vote. So if you're interested in seeing which items were adopted and by which councillors, that is public information. It is contained within our report. And I encourage you that if you had a question or a concern regarding how those motions were passed, absolutely you could contact our county clerk. They're well advised on procedural order. They'd be able to advise you how we conduct our business. But if you want to see in a transparent way how those decisions were made, they are publicly available to you within our agenda this evening. So that's something that I wanted to just sort of address, the elephant in the room, that is we have changed the way of doing business. And we want to come out and open and pass those items that we discussed and closed for the benefit of the public to have a little bit more transparency in their municipal administration. That might be the contentious point. I did have some other public service announcements that are a little bit different in nature. We are beginning, I guess I'm going to call them our road shows, getting those stakeholder engagements and getting out in the public. We've had some dramatic changes to the budget. And a lot of folks are upset, understandably so. But we're just beginning our road tours now, getting out to those community centers, engaging with user groups, one of those groups being the Linwood Arts Center. And we've had a member of the public, Les Anderson, well-respected business owner, former councillor, and he's arranged for a meeting to take place. It has recently changed. It's going to be Thursday, March the 5th at the Simcoe branch of the library. I believe we'll be meeting downstairs to discuss the future of the Linwood Arts Center. So if you are interested in attending, again, that is Thursday, March 5th, and it will be taking place at the Simcoe Library in the community room, I believe, downstairs, if it's not currently still undergoing renovations. 7 p.m. is going to be the meeting time there. So we're inviting members of the public, or rather less, is inviting members of the public to attend, county staff. We do have a management board with Linwood, and we're hoping to reconstitute that or get those active members out to participate. And at least this gives us a little bit of time for those that might want to make a presentation or bring some literature, some information, some history on how we arrived at this point. They're going to have a chance to do that before March rolls around. So I just wanted to get that out there to the public that yes, we are beginning our consultations. Better late than never, but if you want to participate, you're going to have to make an effort to come out and attend those meetings, those town halls, as they are scheduled. So thank you for your indulgence, Mayor and Council, and allowing me to get a couple public service announcements out there.
Thank you, Councillor Rabbits. Any other announcements? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I'd just like to remind everyone that Youth Unlimited is hosting the Coldest Night of the Year walk on February 22nd. They are actively looking for more walkers. It's going to take place at Evergreen Height Church, 140 Oak Street in Simcoe. There will be a light meal served, and if you want more information, please go to cnoy.org.
Anything further? Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a meeting scheduled of the Climate Change Adaptation Committee for Friday at 1:30. Is that correct? And I'm going to be unavailable to attend that meeting. And I was wondering if there's any other councillors who wouldn't mind, backing up Councillor Michelle and learning a little bit more, because our consultants are going to be there with a draft of the sort of the process that we'll be using to do some more community engagement on that. So if anybody is available Friday afternoon, I'd appreciate it if somebody could sit in just to listen in and learn a bit more about what they're doing.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to mention that Councillor Van Passen, I appreciate you finding backups for me, but I will also need a replacement because I'm also unable to make that meeting. So I am also hoping that one of my colleagues could sit in there, because we do have some consultants coming, and they will be providing us with some fairly relevant information and important to the committee. So I hope that someone can check their calendar and let us know if they can take our place.
Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple things within the community. Just wanted to point out that even though tickets are sold out, Blackie and the Rodeo Kings will be playing at the esteemed Old Town Hall in Waterford this week. It's quite a coup for our area to have them play, so looking forward to that. And I wanted to remind my colleagues and the public that the Haldimand Norfolk Women's Services, in celebration of International Women's Day, the Haldimand Norfolk Women's Services will be presenting their annual trivia night. It is Sunday, March 8th. It's the Sunday closest to the International Day of the Women, which is on the Wednesday. It will be held at the Waterford Legion, Branch 123. Doors open at 5:30. Trivia starts at 6. It's an entry fee of $25 a person. Charitable receipts are issued. Teams of 4 players, 10 rounds, 10 questions, and it's all in support of Haldimand Norfolk Women's Services. And it is a great night, and it's a great community engagement, and we get a lot of engagement as well with our Haldimand counterparts. So, thank you.
Councillor Hoffman, anything further? Anything from staff? Okay, so just a reminder to everyone that's here, again, Thursday night at 6:30 at the Langton Community Center. We will be having a presentation there on some of the decisions and how we arrived at those decisions and you know, the financial state of Norfolk County and so on and so forth. I think there's a lot of misinformation that's out there, and we hope to see you there for further discussion. So with that, I have a motion that's been moved by Councillor Huffman and seconded by Councillor Taylor that Council Bylaw 20-2015 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Norfolk County Council of this council meeting held on the 18th day of February 2020 be approved, signed by the Mayor and Deputy County Clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. All those in favor? And that's carried. And finally, motion moved by Councillor Huffman and seconded by Councillor Taylor that Council be adjourned at 4:56 p.m. All those in favor? And that's carried. Council's adjourned.